I got to spend a couple hours exclusively trying the new Quest 3S before launching, and I've got a lot to tell you about it. Now, quick notes here that I do want to say, this is going to be more of a first impressions. This is definitely not a full review. I got to spend hours playing around with it, but I did not get to spend more than 45 minutes actually in it gaming. Another important thing to keep in mind is this video is going to kind of assume that you're familiar with the Quest 3 and its capabilities. The Quest 3S is really meant for people who are not Quest 3 owners already. This is targeting people who are trying to get an upgrade from the Quest 2 or who are considering getting into VR for the first time, which you'll see in their marketing materials is really their target audience here. I also did demo the weird aftermarket facial interface, which is like this squishy see-through silicone one. So that also is going to throw off a little bit of what I thought about the comfort, although the comfort still sucked like pretty much every Quest headset does out the gate. But let's talk about it. So this is a brand new headset launching October 15th. For those who don't know, the Quest 3S is really like a light headset. This is meant to replace the Quest 2, but it has the same internal chipset of the Quest 3. This is the Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 processor, so it can run all the same games, and the developers can even develop specifically just for that chipset and not be having to work on multiple generations of Quests anymore. First thing, when you handle this headset, it really has a Quest 2 feeling in hand. The shell, the lenses you see inside, the screens, it even actually has the same resolution as the Quest 2. It feels like an old friend, like a Quest 2. And the price, this thing is launching at $299 for 128 gigabytes, $399 for 256 gigabytes. And with this launching, they're changing up the Quest 3 pricing model. There will no longer be a Quest 3 128 gigabyte. It's just going to be a 512 model, but for that lower price of $499. So that means if you're someone who actually just bought a 128 at $499, you better go check Amazon and see if you can return it and jump up to the new 512 at that price, because people are not going to be happy about that. The headset is really being marketed as a best for newbies kind of approach, but it also does come with Batman Arkham bundle automatically. So if you buy the Quest 3S, if you pre-order it, you're going to be getting it on October 15th, and then 1 week later, Batman Arkham is going to launch on October 22nd, which is normally a $50 game, and you're going to get that totally free, and 3 months of Quest Plus, which is kind of weird because the Quest 3 did 6 months, but I guess because it's a lower price point, they're not giving you quite as much. We'll talk about some of the really odd points of how this headset's being marketed. So they're using a lot of the current marketing that they would talk about the Quest 3, of like how it has great hand tracking, how it has really good mixed reality. And the hand tracking, you know, from me, it's not necessarily the greatest thing, but they're basically remarketing a lot of the Quest 3 features as the Quest 3S has them, and kind of assuming that the consumer doesn't already know or have a Quest 3 and already know what all these things are. Just something weird and to be aware of. And when you look at the outside of the headset, also the front face looks kind of weird, although once someone's wearing it and they're a little ways away, the 3 dots actually look kind of like eyes on the headset. I feel like it actually might look even a little better than the Quest 3, but those 3 dots, you've got your mixed reality full color pass-through cameras. It is missing the depth sensor that the Quest 3 had, but now it does have some of these dot projectors, which the Quest 3 currently has in the center pill on the front of it. It has 2 of them. This is going to help with low light tracking. It's going to be firing dots around the room to help it see where everything is, help it keep track of them. There's multiple holes which look like microarrays on it, and the front one actually looks like it has some space and maybe a built-in pop filter. We didn't get to test the mic, but hopefully this thing will finally sound good, because you know every other Quest has had a terrible mic on it. And another rumor I want to squash here, the facial interface from the Quest 3 and the Quest 3S are not interchangeable. We thought it might be, but it's something that we discovered with one of the new facial interfaces they're dropping for the Quest 3. It says it's exclusive to the Quest 3 and won't work on the 3S. There's a lot to go over in the specs department. We'll put some up on the screen here for you to see, but quick couple call outs. The Quest 3S does now have 8 gigabytes of RAM, just like the Quest 3. It of course has the same processor, that Snapdragon one, but the display has the exact same resolution as the Quest 2, unlike the Quest 3, which they are calling a 4K plus infinite display. Field of view is also the same as the Quest 2. It really feels like they're using the exact same lenses and screens as the Quest 2, honestly. And those are those Fresnel lenses, which you're familiar with if you ever owned a Quest 2, and if you did own a Quest 3, you'd feel very sad going from those lenses back to these new lenses. But something that they advertise here that was a surprise, the Quest 3S is actually 20% slimmer than the Quest 2. So it does feel like it is much smaller. I think this just reminded me that I haven't held a Quest 2 in a long time, and when you do, they were kind of chunky. The mixed reality is now on par with the same mixed reality experience you get on the Quest 3, but it is missing the depth sensor. It had a hardware depth sensor that we're all used to on the Quest 3 for those of us who have it, but now they're just doing software depth on the Quest 3S. The Quest 3S weighs a tiny bit more than the Quest 2. The Quest 2 at 503 grams, the Quest 3S at 550 14 grams, somehow 1 gram lower than the Quest 3. Maybe it's that missing auxiliary port. And now these battery life specs are what Meta is quoting, so keep that in mind here. They're claiming that the Quest 2 had a battery life of 1.5 to 2.5 hours on average use. They're claiming the Quest 3 has 2.2 hours of average use, and that the Quest 3S, although having a smaller battery, it doesn't need as much battery power, so they're claiming it gets 2.5 hours of average use. I asked a couple of the random people that were helping demo these headsets, and most of them said they thought they were lasting around 2 hours. Of course, keep that in mind. If you're doing mixed reality, it is much better. He's lasting on these for you guys. Like, how often do you have to swap them out?
Oh, I mean,
but like between every demo, you're just charging them up, I'm guessing. Any idea how quick they would die?
I'm not sure. The battery life, 2 hours.
2 hours on it?
Same as the Quest 3.
Okay. But I still feel like we're going to be in the same boat we've been in for a long time, where this battery just is not really what we want, and we're going to be needing battery straps out the gate. But speaking of that, it does look like straps from the Quest 3 will work just fine alongside the Quest 3S. Look at that. That comes off just as easily as the Quest 3, and it looks like it's exactly the same mounts. The sidearms seem to be the same. I unfortunately wasn't able to actually swap one, but the multiple times I removed the Quest 3 head strap, it did feel like the same design and what I was used to. Headband, same old design we're familiar with from the Quest 3. Sides seem to fall off a lot easier in the Quest 3, but it could be these models that have been going on, but I've had mine come off multiple times like this. It does look interchangeable with the Quest 3 design, but I wouldn't say go buy a Quest 3 head strap right now until we can actually verify that. If you are a Quest 3 owner and you're wondering, does it have anything actually better than the Quest 3, there is a new action button on the bottom. This allows you to swap back and forth between mixed reality and full immersion. Action button is a quick out of the game, puts you back into your menu. Buttons feel cheaper. I appreciate this because I feel like the 2 taps on the side just never worked for me, to the point where I never bothered with it, and having that dedicated button was helpful. The 1 gram less weight, I don't think you could actually call that a difference, but I guess you could try to claim it's slightly lighter. And the battery life does claim to be better, although again, until I can get my hands fully on one and verify that for you, I wouldn't hold to that claim. The cons, of course, it comes with all the same cons as the Quest 2 had. Fresnel lenses have a very small sweet spot. It's hard to get your eyes in just the right place. The IPD adjustment is identical. The sweet spot's small. You can slide the lenses inside from 58 to 63 to 68 IPD, which means you're stuck with those exact numbers. You don't have much of a range. The headset feels kind of cheap in hand if you're used to the Quest 3, although if you're used to the Quest 2, it would probably just feel really similar. And if you've never had a VR headset, it does feel nice and light when you hold it, and when you grab onto it, it just feels very plasticky. There is a glasses extender for the facial interface, just like the Quest 2. It's a crappy snap-on one that goes on the outside of the facial interface. You lose field of view, but it does make space for the glasses. And weirdly, it kind of has the same woes of the Quest 3 as well. It's front heavy. The stock strap it comes with sucks. It feels terrible. It shoves into your face. It has a lot of heat blowing out of the top where the vent port is at the very top front of the headset, just like the Quest 3 does. The facial interface itself, if you're taking it out, putting it back in, it uses plastic snaps. We keep wishing they would just switch over to magnets. It seems like it'd be easier and wouldn't really add much expense, but still not there. But ultimately, we get to the pros, and you're still getting a fully wireless VR package for less than $300, which is wild when you think about the hardware that goes into these things. If you got a phone with the same kind of hardware, you'd be paying a lot more money. It's an easy entry into VR, as the whole Quest lineup has been. Anyone can buy in, get into it. It does bring a couple of new features, as we mentioned already. It's really a great first-timer headset, or if someone has a Quest 2, it's aging, you will be able to get this headset for a nice low price and play all those Quest 3 exclusive titles that we've been seeing, because the Quest 3 exclusives will all also work on the Quest 3S. Alongside this, we also had some other surprise announcements. They showed off a bunch of new accessories for both the Quest 3S and the Quest 3. You know, we'll be getting those in, reviewing all those for you down the road, and I'll be breaking those down much further when I have more thoughts, but a couple quick call outs about some of the things that are kind of exciting. They launched a compact charging dock, which keeps your controllers wirelessly charged and allows you to just plug the headset in to charge it, although the batteries are strangely small. I think they were like 167 milliamp hours on those batteries.
0.64 watt hours, 167 milliamp hours, really tiny controller batteries.
Some new carrying cases that seem to work for both. A very interesting spatial awareness facial interface for the Quest 3. We talked about that a little before in the news, but basically something that just leaves a very wide open range for you to look around, see, really allows it to vent out. This facial interface is a trip. Cloth pads like the original, bouncy with a spring there. That side's hard. These follow the same points that the original facial interface follows. So those are your points of contact all across it. Big open air areas. And something to think about now, if you do want a Quest 3S, if you do their play now, pay later, where you can pay for it monthly, it's just $20 a month to get into VR, which is a really low price for it. So ultimately, if you're wondering, well, who is this headset for? If anyone is new to VR right now, I'm gonna recommend, if they ask me what headset do I get, I'm gonna say, hey, if you want a good priced headset that does still do really great VR, Quest 3S is the way to go. But if you can hold out, pay an extra $200 now, you get that Quest 3 with 512 gigabytes of space. That is absolutely worth your money. That is still my go-to, but there will be links in the description and the comments down below to both headsets if you're interested in them. If you already have a Quest 3, the only reason I would consider the 3S is because you can get a second headset to play co-op VR, play with your family for pretty cheap. That $500 to buy another headset is a lot, but if you're looking to get a couple for your family and all play together, get a couple of Quest 3Ss.
I like that there is finally an action button instead of double tapping to go into pass-through. The button feels cheap, the switches feel cheap. Everything about the headset feels like it's $300 now, where the Quest 3 did feel a lot more premium. Overall, it's just an entry for people to get back in, and now they have the same processor, so you can get the same experiences again. I think most people will still want to spring for the 512 Quest 3 if they can, but this allows people who don't know any better to get in pretty fast.
So in conclusion, the last thing I would say here is if you've been thinking about the 3S for a while, if you want to pre-order one now, you can get it. It's going to launch next month, October 15th, and then it's going to come with Batman Arkham free, which is a $50 game. But if you're on the fence, we'll definitely be getting one day one. We'll have full reviews here for you. But I need something really major from all of you out there. What questions do you have about this headset? Drop them in the comments down below. We're going to start up a quick series, again, like we did last year with the Quest 3, where I'll pull your comments, we'll put them up on screen, and do our best to answer as many of them as we can for you before launch. But I want to say thank you once again to all of you out there for being here with me, and I'll see you in another reality.